This time I'm going to call the roll to the group here. Nancy Baker. Maybe. Carl Clappin. Mary Cox is not here. I have his proxy. Casey Cooper. George Evans. Maggie Faulkner. Judy Green.
Right here.
Jeff Heck. Here. Judy Johansson.
Here.
Pat McGinnis.
Here.
Mark Pittman. Duncan Stumper. Stumper. All right, thank you. Before we begin our meeting, if you would, if you have a cell phone with you, please make sure to leave it off on the vibrate, please. And at this time, I'm going to introduce, I'm going to ask Stephen Sawyer to come forward and introduce a new employee of Smoking House Center.
Thank you, Chuck. Good evening. I'm sorry. I'm pleased to announce, I guess, two things. One, I'm going to retire at the end of November, and this is something I've been planning for a couple of years, and Brian, Christine, and others within Smoking have been well aware of it. We're fortunate, I think, to be in a position to be able to go ahead and have recruited and selected an individual that allows us about 7 months of the transition time, which I think is really great. So with that said, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Mr. Fred Nerday. And Fred is, I'm just going to take just a minute and tell you about him, and then I'll let him also tell you about himself. But Fred comes to us with just a wealth of experience and knowledge in behavioral health and intellectual and developmental disabilities. Fred is certified as a CPA, so he has a strong background in finance and accounting, and he has worked in governmental accounting for the state of Illinois as their CFO for their behavioral health unit. Fred also is a licensed clinical social worker, so he brings the service side of that. He has been a CEO of a provider agency, and I believe you also provided direct care early on in your career. Is that correct? Long time ago. Okay. Yeah, we can't talk about long times ago. We all been around a little bit long. But anyway, I'm just really pleased to be able to work with Fred over the next 7 months as we do this transition. And even though we've only worked together for, I guess, less than 2 weeks, one of the main things about Fred too is he's just so pleasant to work with. So I'm just pleased that you are here and would love for you to say a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. It's a pleasure to be here, so thank you. I enjoyed the opportunity. Just to add on to a few comments, I've worked in the state of Illinois for much of my adult career and lived in the Chicago metropolitan area for about 30 years or so. I come here most directly from Central Illinois, being a provider of mental health and alcohol and substance abuse services in Peoria, Illinois. Go yellow. The reference to the color is Caterpillar tractor, because you don't know Peoria until you know about Caterpillar, which is a driver within the community. I'm also a former hospital administrator of the state psychiatric facility called Madden Mental Health Center, a 150-bed psychiatric facility about 15, 16 miles west of the Chicago Loop. It serves much of the Chicago metropolitan area. Certainly been used to working in a highly diverse environment, both in serving consumers as well as dealing with professional staff. And come to you with an interest in North Carolina in particular. Things are a little different here. The language is a little different, but I will assure you too many of the problems are exactly the same. So I'm looking forward to dealing with those challenges and to doing it hopefully with each and every one of you.
This time, I'm Brian Ingram for a presentation. I just didn't argue about it.
Sure.
Well, you know, the truth be known, we've had such a rough time with finding a way to appropriately gain closure for the Western Highlands Legacy Board. Just scheduling problems and this and that, we finally decided that, you know, as we had folks attending these meetings, we recognized and hopefully we'll get through giving everybody a little something. To say you didn't sign up for what you went through is probably an understatement, isn't it? You know, it was a great group of people for us to work with. You know, we kind of quickly found, you know, good relationships, and that's saying a lot. You know, difficult situations, and you know, approach things so well, and happy that so many of you now are part of this new board. So, with that said, let's see, who's first here? Well, Mandy, how about if we start off with you? I'll let you read that check if you'd like to.
This is a small token of appreciation that's given to Mandy for all the hard work you've done at Western Highlands. Presenting to Mandy Stone a deep appreciation for your individual talents and concerned dedication so generously given to the citizens of our community. The Board of Directors of Western Highlands area, February 2014.
I made it just in time.
Maggie, it's just a small token of appreciation for all the hard work that you've done while you serve on Western Highlands Board. It says, presenting to Maggie Faulkner, deep appreciation for your individual talent and firm dedication, so generously given to the citizens of our community. Board of Directors of Western Highlands Area Authority, February 2014.
Thank you so much.
Oh, don't go anywhere. You always risk when you call somebody out, but I have to say, especially appreciate, you know, all that you did, Chuck. And, formed a great relationship with you. So happy you're still part of things. You know, we don't have trouble calling each other 9:30 at night just to check in, make sure everything's going okay. So I really very deeply appreciate all you've done. It's been remarkable. So, although words cannot express how much your work has meant to Western Highlands and Smoky and DMH DDSAS system delivery as a whole, the enclosed plaque communicates a small measure of our appreciation. In deep appreciation for your individual talents and concerned dedication so generously given to the citizens of our communities. And you sure deserve that, Mr. Thank you so much.
As we move on, next item on the agenda is public comment period, and Ms. Mary Short.
Oh, where am I standing today? Hello, Mary Short and my daughter Katie.
Yeah.
Hi. She said, yeah, I'm so proud. I live in Alexander County, and I'm still disturbed about the idea that Smoky Mountain Center is working with Benchmarks, who is working with the National Association of Direct Support Professionals to organize a chapter here in North Carolina. I believe that their focus on raising wages is going to do nothing to get individuals off the Innovations Registry of Unmet Needs. And as part of my research and planning for the upcoming General Assembly session, I have discovered there are a number of states who have passed state wage pass-through legislation. Arizona, California, Colorado, Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin, Wyoming. So it seems I'm going to be able to find some great information about state wage pass-through legislation and how that might be a better way to go rather than getting some type of union organization in here for direct service professionals. So I hope maybe you all can pay attention to the difference between this professional organization that may or may not be interested in unionizing the direct support professionals versus the concept of a state wage pass-through to increase the wages of our direct support professionals. And I'm still angry at the number of people on the NC Innovations wait list. And I understand there might have been some changes to the way the Registry of Unmet Needs is being administered. Thank you.
Next is Jerry Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Hope you all had a good month. You got off from seeing me. How about that? I'm always concerned about children and issues in school. And I'm running into a lot of problems, and when I say a lot, I deal with a lot. And I don't think that Smokey is doing enough. I guess we could say it every time we could. But that don't mean you're not doing something good. But dealing with the school issues, and we're not talking about just school, we're talking about mental health, behavioral health, we're talking about medical issues, medical fragile. We're talking about kids with attendance issues. All this is related to the things that youngsters are doing today to make policy. And I do not see enough going on to show me, because parents are coming to me with needs that should be met here at Smoky, or they should be met at school. And I don't think there's enough conversation between the school. And I deal with a lot with Buncombe, and I know if it's happening in Buncombe, I deal with other counties too. It's happening there as well because I'm dealing with it out there. And a lot of these issues are surrounding medical issues with behavioral health, and some just plain out medical issues that's being treated as mental health. And I don't think you're going to solve this problem by throwing everybody in one basket under mental health. The other issues is parents that I'm dealing with, and I'm not speaking of just Buncombe County, I'm speaking of 7 counties at least, is that parents are being thrown in to 2 providers, or they've been directed to Mission Health. They've been directed to places that are specific rather than having a choice. I think that's a real issue. I think it's going to become a bigger issue because it seems like the focus is on 2 providers, and that's going to be it. And let me tell you, if you don't change the administration, you don't get choices. The other thing with school, and this is very serious, is SROs. These are resource officers. Kids are ending up at juvenile court. And these are kids that should be in your care and being cared back. And the schools are not looking at it seriously. And I think mental health providers, and I'll have to say some of them has went to bat to try to get the schools to do some things, and they're getting slapped between the eyes with the principals, administration, and I think some way or another Smokey needs to work on something with the schools, because if the administration don't get a handle on this, we're going to see a lot more issues than you've ever seen with behavioral health, because SROs need to be trained. And they don't just need to be trained in mental health, they need to be able to handle DD and other medical kinds of issues that they don't have any training in. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you.
Amy O'Connor.
You want to go next? Yeah, if you don't mind. Kathy's going to go next.
Kathy. Kathy White.
This group is the Smoky Board of Directors.
Yep.
They're responsible for policy, programs, services, eligibility. These are the guys in charge.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I often come with Jerry and
Yep.
with Amy, and I introduce myself. Dr. Catherine Ryder,
Yep.
former case manager,
Yep.
advocate, and your mom.
Yeah.
Okay? This is Thomas. Most of these people have no family members that have disabilities. It's important to me to share our experiences
Yep.
with them because there's a lot of people who have trouble getting and keeping services.
Right.
Sometimes they'll have somebody stand up here and talk about how wonderful it is.
No.
That's not always been our experience. So we need to provide some balance, okay? And some perspective from the trenches.
Yeah.
Not that ours is the only
No,
perspective.
that's right.
There's a couple of members here who, when I talk, sometimes they smirk. There's always one who emails me.
Yeah.
I am persistent and I come back because you taught me that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you and I talk about what we're going to talk about?
No.
No, you're right. Did we talk about it?
No.
Okay.
No.
What did you have to do in order to come here today? I made one requirement of you.
I done dressed nice.
And
Haircut. My beard is this long, my hair was that long.
okay. You scare women, children, small dogs.
Yep.
Okay, so that was the only requirement. Okay.
Yep.
You look nice.
Yep. I'm so proud of you. Okay. We're here today because I want them to know you because you're going to cost them money. We're going to court. And they need to know when they look at the budget who that money is going for. Okay? They took 50% of your supported employment, which I think is a problem. And we're here because you think it's a problem.
I think it's a big problem.
Okay. So, you don't usually like to talk about yourself, but if I ask you some questions, will you be able to share information?
Yep.
Okay. What kind of meds do you take?
Take the rotten, clonidine, Vilify, Menda, take another one, it's, one more.
Dopamine, Tegretol?
Tegretol, and, I think that's it.
Okay. What do you take that stuff for?
Take that for my bipolar,
Okay. Are you pretty well medicated?
very well.
Now, has it always been that way?
No, it's not always been that way.
Okay.
I mean, before,
Okay. What kind of learning challenges do you have? How
I can't
does,
sit still very long unless it, this is really interesting for me. I can't sit still for hours.
okay. Is reading and writing easy for you?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. All right. So you do better with pictures, right?
Yes, I do better at pictures. I
All
can
right.
take a motor and look at a picture or screw a wheelbarrow apart. You got a wheelbarrow in pieces. I can look at a wheelbarrow in pieces and they say, I don't need those words of instructions, but you can put it together by the picture.
Right.
That's how my brain works.
Last month I told them that Jerry wouldn't let you do the beer vending machine. All right.
Yeah.
And on Friday you were over with Amy. What happened to her lawnmower?
Her lawnmower wouldn't start.
And okay, what was wrong?
Carburetor's a little bit funny on it, so
How did you know that?
I said, it's not starting. Usually you prime it 6 to 7, 6, which is, see, 3 times 3 is 6, so you figure 6 times plus 6 is 2, it fires right up. So,
Okay. So what did you do to fix it?
well, I went over there and they said, oh, look at that spring, a little loose, tighten that.
Okay.
Did a couple different things to it and cranked right up.
Okay. Okay. I spend money for you to see Dr. Bob Hanna a couple of times a month. What do you do with Dr. Hanna?
I work on things that I need to talk about.
Okay.
Otherwise it ends up in a big old pile and I blow up.
Okay. So
Get angry.
relationship issues?
Relationship issue.
Okay. Who are your two biggest challenges for your relationship issues?
Mom and Kim.
Okay.
Kim with
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. How many places did you live before you came to your dad?
see her, that's see, I can tell you hospitalizations. I've had 15 of them. I've had see what else I have. It's 15 hospitalizations between the ages of 6 and 14. And I've had I'm not even looking at this paper, I can tell you that.
You can probably read my writing.
Yeah.
Dad and I were your 8th home.
Yeah, 8th home.
Okay, you came at 3 years old
Yep.
from a psych hospital.
Yep.
Okay, some challenges there,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. It's probably a good thing I didn't know. Okay. So I have a gift with words. What is your gift?
My gift is motors and small engines.
Where did that gift come from?
I was little when I started on that
Okay,
stuff.
all right.
Very little. I was like 5 or 6. I bring home washing and drying machines, take them all to pieces.
Take after Jerry and where are you
And
going
I
to live?
put them all
here?
back together.
Okay.
And sometimes they work out and sometimes they wouldn't. And I got better at it. I started putting back together and making them run.
So talk about your regular customers. Who do you work with on a regular basis? Just
people
kind of
come,
general.
people who come.
Like Uncle Charles is a regular.
Uncle Charles, I
too,
go up there and I mow his lawn
every week.
every week, and then I go up to Uncle Charles every other week and I cut firewood for Kim's house.
Okay.
That's what, then remember, some of our main heat sources, usually, propane's high, and,
Just talk about your customers. Who
yeah,
else?
I got, Reverend Pete comes over to lawnmowers every now and then, which I have
Okay.
2 in my house right now. I have
Okay.
Glenn across the street has 1 over there right now. I have 3 lawnmowers, rider, and 2 self-propelled Cub cadets.
Okay. I will say, God bless, that Kim, your AFL provider, is, and I say this with great affection, a redneck, because there is a reason.
There's nobody in this state
Who would allow.
to
the
allow
crap.
the crap that I have. I
In
store,
her-
I have bins and bins of parts.
God
I take
bless
a mower
Kim.
that's blowed up, I take all the parts off that are salvageable, I'll put them in a bin, I'll label them,
Okay.
and they'll go in the bin.
What do you do when you work with Myron?
Myron, we usually do the firewood, and we do his lawn sometimes, we mow his lawn.
Mowing, tree cutting?
Tree cutting, yeah.
What about your chainsaw?
Oh, I have a big chainsaw.
How big is it?
372 XP, 24-inch bar, did 71 cc or so.
We didn't bring it because we didn't want to
We
scare
didn't scare
Sadie.
anybody. We didn't want to scare everybody.
Okay.
But,
So what's the last new thing you learned? The last new thing? You working with Bob on how trenching and excavating?
yep.
What's the next thing you'd like to learn?
I think diesel mechanics would be good for me.
So you have a nice combination of paid supported employment and community supports. Amy, once a month or so, will say, oh, I got a project, I need Thomas. If the weather's bad, you cancel,
Can't
right?
cancel. We can't
Your
do it.
supported employment staff never cancels.
No, they never.
Like the post office, they're there,
Yeah,
okay. So when we got the denial, they said you're losing 50% of your supported employment because you aren't learning anything. What's your response?
My response is that's crap.
Okay.
That's absolute crap, utter crap.
Okay, good language. Okay. They said you don't wash the gas off your hands and you've got cuts from chainsaws, therefore they should cut your services. Is that,
That's crap too.
why?
Cuts,
Cuts are dangerous.
Cuts are dangerous, yes. Cuts can be dangerous. They can get infected.
How many cuts have you had?
See, I have one on my leg, my deal. Not it was accidental. I was cutting sprigs, and it was right back when I was living in Maggie Dell. This is what, 5 years ago?
At least.
5 years ago, and I was cutting sprig, and hit the sprig, and
What's a sprig?
sprig would be a little short piece of wood.
Ryder, your time is up, please.
Now it's your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, keep going. Okay.
Anyways,
All right, so they wrote on there that you need to find employment options that are less dangerous. What would you like to do besides mow lawns, fix lawnmowers, and cut
I don't
trees
think
with
that would be
chainsaw?
that wouldn't be my choice. I love doing what I do.
What
I
if
love falling trees and cutting wood.
Okay. What have we
That's-
tried
that's
in the
what-
past?
We've tried reading books, which I hate. We've tried on a Sunday. It just lawnmowers and things are just my passion to do.
Okay, okay, all right.
Taking them apart, putting them back together.
Okay. We are going to end up probably, we have mediation on Monday, perhaps we'll end up going to court, I kind of expect we will. It needs to be really clear that the supported employment and the community networking provide an opportunity for Thomas to become independent and have a life. We work, for most part, 40 hours a week. He
Yeah.
gets 30 hours a week of services, now it's 20 hours a week of services. Trouble brews when you have nothing to do.
Drives me crazy. I can't sit still.
Okay. And are you easy to live with?
No. Oh, no.
Which is why you don't live with me?
Yeah.
Okay. He's had the proper services from the proper providers, and he's making progress. That 10 hours doesn't seem like much. Oh, you should be able to fill 10 hours. Find some community people. His placement is at risk because 10 hours of Thomas with nothing to do is not good. Anyway, I thought you ought to be able to see his face because I refer to him when I come, and because you've been on the waiver, any idea how long?
That'd be about 15, 20 years.
Well, you're 26 and you started at 18, so yeah, 15 years. Yeah, okay, all right.
And I'm personally saying it's sad to see what waivers do to people.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Connor?
This is the first time I've been here, and I'm surprised. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk down here and shake Brian Ingram's hand. Because I called you 4 or 5 times, and you've not returned my call. So I want you to, my name is Amy O'Connor, and you are a provider for my son. And the next time that I call you, I'd appreciate if you could call me back. If that would be so easy for you to do. You're welcome. So, we're just ordinary people, living ordinary lives, doing ordinary things. I want to make a comment on Thomas. I've known Thomas since he was 15 years old, and he's made great strides in the last 11 years. Unbelievable strides. I own a saw called the stop saw, and that saw was developed for woodworkers who are neurotypical people. Because anybody who owns a woodworking shop for any length of time and works with wood, when you shake their hand, they're missing something. They're missing a finger. And so the stop saw, when it feels the moisture from your thumb or your finger, it drops down into a cage and it does not cut your fingers off. So saying that Thomas working with train saws because he's gotten a few cuts a few times is dangerous, you can say that every woodworker in this country is working with something dangerous. I work with Thomas. I watched him fix my mower the other day, and he understands machines, and he understands how to make them work, and he understands how to be careful. So I'd be real careful to say a blanket statement that just because of where he stands and your eyes on a piece of paper, that he's not capable of doing that. But what I really wanted to talk about was fear. I worked with Western Highlands for 7 years. And in those 7 years, I never knew who the CEO was. I never knew who the chief medical director was. I never knew who the integrity operator was. I never knew who anybody was. Because my questions were answered on the level where they needed to be answered. The people that I worked with at Western Highlands knew how to get me the information that I needed in a way that I needed to get it, so that I didn't become frustrated and I didn't pick up the phone and call Brian Ingram or Dr. Martin. So, I was thinking about the difference between Western Highlands and the difference between Smoky Mountain, and I got to thinking about my eldest son. And 2 years ago, he brought a young girl home, and he was all enamored that this was the one. She is the love of my life. I'm marrying this woman. And he brought her from Oregon, and they moved over here for him to get to know his children and his family. And after 2 years, he came to me and he said, "She's not the one, Mom." And I was surprised because I thought this is the perfect woman. But she was the one that she was perfect, but she was the list person. I send a birthday card, check. Do the laundry, check. Took the girls to school, check. She was the list person and she got it right. She did everything right. But when the relationship ended, she was confused. Well, I did everything right. I did my list. I did what I was supposed to do. And that's the difference between Western Highland and between Smoky Mountain. Smoky Mountain is the list people. The girl that he married, she's Western Highland. She listens when you talk to her. She's not thinking about what is that list, what's the protocol, what's right, what's wrong, what am I supposed to do. She's listening to what I'm saying. I've been watching you guys while people have been talking, and many of you were not listening to them. You were texting on your phones. You were playing with your iPads. You were looking at notes. But you weren't looking at them in the eye. When they take their time to come here and talk to you, looking them in the eye is the thing you need to do. And I am surprised that this is a board meeting and this is all the people you have? This is your people? Where are your people? Why are you caseworkers not beating the drum and saying, come out? If you guys were a corporation and your corporation depended on your people, you'd be in sad shape right now. You'd be in sad shape right now having this little handful of people that you service. You should want us to come. You should want to hear what we have to say. You should not be fearful. Your parents face fears every day. Every day they wake up and they face fears. Fears that their children are going to lose their services. Fears that their children are not going to be successful. Fears that their children are going to go to jail. And you are the people that handle this in our communities. And yet when we call you, we get half answers. We get answers that make no sense. We get different answers from different people. And it's very frustrating to us. It's very frustrating to us. And I thought about many things that I could tell you and many things that I could say. I could talk about when my son needed to go into a residential treatment program, how the person sent me a list that I could pull off the internet. And that it took me days to go down and call each one of those people. And that my son ended up in a place that was substantially underrated, that it was horrible. And I had to go over there and do the boots on the ground and find out that it was a bad place for him. And I had to stomp my feet. and I had to get it done. But what about the parents that don't know how to stomp their feet? What about the parents that don't know how to get angry? What about the parents who don't know how to write a letter, who don't know how to send something to their congressman? What about those parents? What about the parents that can't do it?
You need to wind up your comments.
Okay, my last comment is, you have the meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon. You might consider having it later. I called 15 businesses today, and not one of them closed at 4:30. They close at 5, 5:30, and 6. My granddaughter's being inducted into an honor society tonight at 7 o'clock. And the reason they do it at 7 o'clock is because that's when people can be there. So I hope next month when we come, that there's more people on this side so that you guys can really take for what we have to say to you. That the comments that we have to you about the services our children are receiving are not substantial or not what we need them to be, that you really think about it. And that maybe you will ask a question or a comment in the future rather than just listening and going on about business as usual. Thank you for your time.
That's all the public comment for the evening. Next item on the agenda is item C, review and approval of the agenda. You have it in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda that we have without changes? So moved. I got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D is the review and approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. If you have in front of you, if you've had an opportunity to look at those, is there a motion that we accept the minutes as written? Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or changes to the existing minutes? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. I'm going to identify Ms. Tracy Hayes on the conflict of interest. Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no conflicts of interest to report. We have received all of the conflict of interest disclosure forms from all of our board members except one. He's pointing at it, says he hasn't, so we haven't done the conflict of interest, but let's thank you all very much.
People have a hard time hearing.
Board member liability, Tracy Hayes and Ms. Lisa Slade.
With the permission of the chair, Ms. Lusher, I would like to suggest that this particular agenda item would be postponed until next month, because we've had a significant number of people not able to be here tonight due to unexpected illness or family matters. And the board member who requested that we discuss liability is not here. And Ms. Lusher and I have spoken with our insurance brokers, who provide our brokers and also liability insurance, and they are prepared to attend next month and provide a brief presentation on our coverage, and what we have, and I can give you a brief overview of the legal piece and the liability. So with permission of the chair, we can post on that.
We'll focus on that to our next board meeting there. Item G is tax lien, the Consumer and Family Advisor Procedure Report.
Each of our regions met, and we nominated, we have nominations for new chairs and vice chairs for our respective regions, and these will be voted on at the July local CPAC meetings. The Western region, Judy Johansson, vice chair will be Dan Lane. Myself in the Central region as chair. Ken Roberts will be new as vice chair. Northern region, Karen Groves, vice chair is to be determined. The Southern region would be Nancy Baker, and the vice chair would be Leslie Huntley. Our next meeting will be by video conference of all four regions on May the 20th. There will also be a statewide meeting, CPAC meeting in Gastonia on May the 16th that I think several of us are planning to attend. Smoky Mountain CPAC members continue to be involved in QI committees, cross-functional teams, clinical operations, QIC, community education, health literacy, service management, provider network, council, crisis and emergency department initiatives, budget meetings, LQICs, UMs, state and local CPAC meetings, and human rights committees and activities locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally. 2 of our members recently attended the Disability Rights North Carolina's first conference in Chapel Hill, where we were able to see Louis Curtis, the LC, and the Olmsted case. 1 member attended Darkness to Light training by Smokey and Boone recently. There is a NAMI peer-to-peer 6-week training starting in Boone, being led by Karen, our CFAC chair in the Northern Region, and co-facilitated by Tammy Sanabra, a CFAC member from our Central Region. The North Carolina Mental Health Consumers Oral 25th Anniversary Conference announcement has been sent out to Smoky CFAC members. It will be June the 20th at the North Raleigh Hilton. Some of our members are also planning on attending the Guardianship Conference in Asheville in May, 14th through the 16th. There are a variety of other activities going on in our region, across the state and nation that many of our folks are interested in. But one of the most appreciated things that Smokey's opened up trainings to CFAC and to the board for any of you that are unaware of that. And as our CFAC members learn about the opportunity, more and more of us are showing an interest and starting to inquire and attend some of the trainings that we find on the calendars on the website. We're calling people and going to some of these trainings. And I would like to encourage you folks as board members, if you have some time, not to overlook this great opportunity and these great trainings that they're providing to us, because I've learned a lot personally, and other folks I've talked to are going to some, they're learning, and we need to be an educated group, at least our CFAC, and I stress cross-training for us, and so we're trying to do some of that by taking advantage of some of the trainings that Smokey's offered. And of course, we always appreciate the opportunity to be here, and that we're proud that we're finally part of the Smokey board. And I don't know, Nancy and Judy may have a little something to add.
Well, our Southern CFAC has been very active in the past few months. We have broken up into teams, and we have visited all the RECs and PSRs and recovery education centers and psycho social rehab. We came back and put a full report together. We were actually invited over to Waynesville. We spent almost 5 hours over there in the REC and the PSR this past Wednesday. And so now we're going to kind of go back and visit the ones that we that didn't get to go. I'm actually going to be around the county tomorrow touring and visiting some of the facilities down there. So our CFAC has been very active. We're following through with a lot of the things that we feel like we need to be doing as far as monitoring some of the providers and the services that they're giving. And Christina was very pleased with our report back this past week and saw the amount of work that our CFAC have been doing, and we've been staying very active.
Thanks, Nancy. Any questions for the CFAC member? Board? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. The next item is the Provider Advisory Council report. Mr. Sumter isn't here, so we'll go from there and move on down. The Finance Committee did not meet the fact that we didn't have a quorum. We're going to combine the financial reports and everything in with item J with the Chief Finance Officer, Ms. as well.
Thank you.
And there will be an item on there for action, is that correct? There'll be an item for action there?
Yes, there are 2 action items. Just wanted to give an update on Smokey's financial position at the end of February. We had $53 million in cash, and of that, $41 million of that cash is related to the Medicaid waiver. That equates to about 80 days of service expense for Medicaid that we had in cash. That's very important to keep an adequate Medicaid cash flow and cash on hand, because we know if we don't pay providers timely, we don't have services provided to consumers. At the end of February, Smokey's total assets were $72 million. We also had liabilities of $28.8 million at the end of February, and that includes our IBNR, which is around $16 to $17 million per month. And IBNR, for those that are new, is incurred but not reported. Sorry to use the acronym, but it's claims that we estimate or services that have been provided but not yet billed to Smokey. And again, that's around $16 to $17 million. On the revenue and expense side, our service revenue overall through February was 160 million, and of that, we had utilized 92% at the end of February. At that same time period, we had used 83% of our administrative funds. We're required by Senate Bill 208 to keep a current ratio of 1-to-1 for Medicaid, and that means your current assets to your current liabilities have to be equal, 1-to-1. You can't go below that, or you're at risk of having your contract for Medicaid waiver terminated. So at the end of February, Smokey's ratio was 1.8-to-1, so we far exceeded that benchmark in that measure. Our overall current ratio of Smokey was 2.3-to-1. Typically, your financial measure, you don't want to go below 2-to-1. So again, it's a very positive financial position for Smokey to have. I want to talk now just a little bit about our per member per month Medicaid rate that Smokey's paid. We've been working with Mercer and DMA over the last couple of months as they are developing our per member per month rate for July 1st, which is year 3 of the waiver. Currently, Smokey has a rate, and the Western Highlands counties have continued with their same rate. Beginning July 1st, we have a blended rate. The rate offer that we were originally made by Mercer and DMA, we felt like was somewhat adequate except for a couple of areas. So after, I guess it was about 3 more meetings, Brian, and phone calls with them, we got Mercer to agree to add 1.4 million to our rate, which is related to innovations. Also with that, we have gotten 2.9 million in administrative revenue next year that's going to cover the Western Highlands closeout, startup, and transition. They're really committed to do, I think it's around 4.8 to 5 million of the closeout, but next year we're going to get about 2.9 million of it. We thought that was very positive outcome, and we really were pleased with where we ended up.
Lisa deserves a lot of credit for that. This is, I mean, to condense it into a couple of sentences like this, it's challenging because this involved a tremendous amount of work over months and meetings and whatnot. And so it's something we can be very, very, very proud of and pleased with.
We have 2 action items we want to present tonight, and I was going to do the first one. I think Brian was going to do the second one. The first one is related to the Evergreen Foundation and the ongoing legal issues there. We have a mediation scheduled for tomorrow and are asking the board to commit another $500,000 of fund balance, which may or may not be used, but it would be able to take us all the way through the trial if we happen to get through the trial. And I don't know, Brian or Tracy, if you all want to add any more to that.
We are in closed session, Mr. Zalone will be speaking to the board about mediation. Provide more information at that time. Again, this amount will cover us completely through the trial, so if we don't need a trial, this amount would not be necessary.
Okay, we've got a request to approve $500,000 from fund balance to go for the continuing litigation, the ongoing litigation that we have. Is there a motion that we approve this?
So moved.
Okay.
Second. Whatever.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries.
And the next item was to discuss the cost of living adjustment. I think Brian, you want to present that?
Yeah. And, you know, we're a little bit out of sync, you know, not having a finance committee meeting. And for folks that haven't been part of the board, you know, normally how we do this is talk about this in finance committee, but also bring it to the full board. Essentially, in our budget process every year, we look at what can we do for employees. It's really that simple. You know, how stable is our funding? What is the budget going to look like? We try to do a little reality testing with some of the counties and other areas to see, you know, what's happening in terms of COLA and what we believe we can do reasonably is to budget for 2% COLA for staff. I think in the ballpark, that's a little over $500,000. You know, normally what we would do in a finance committee is just, you know, have some level of discussion about that and years past, we've, altered that a little bit in discussion, so, not having that committee meeting, I guess we just kind of put this out here for anybody's reaction. Anything to add? I mean, from the budgeting perspective?
Oh, just from the budgeting perspective, it's helpful to know at this time, because as we
Right.
present the budget to be adopted and reviewed at the May board meeting, it's best to know ahead of time what that percentage is, so we can include it in the proposed budget. I think last year we talked about it, and right before the budget, we decided, or I think the board voted to change the amount, so we're just trying to get a little ahead before we present the proposed budget at the May board meeting.
This will be effective in this fiscal year. Hearing the request for a COLA increase of 2%, be either a plus or minus $500,000. I think it's a little over $500,000. Is there, before we can have questions, is there a motion that we do this?
I'll make that motion, sir.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. Now discussion. Any discussion from the board? Any questions from the board?
I'd just like to add that in Jackson County, I think our employees will be proposed to have a 2% cost of living. I know our library, like that originally was requested, the same 2% for its staff. So that's certainly not out of line with what local governments are doing.
Any other questions?
I can say that in the healthcare industry that is not happening. And my question is just, do you anticipate increased revenues? How will that be? And not having the benefit of the finance committee, it's hard to, I mean, we don't have the knowledge of, the intimate knowledge of the budget to know whether that will be sustained. So at least I guess we really can use it.
Yeah, and that is one of the things, Dr. Heck, when we are finalizing the budget, even though the board has voted on the 2%, it is really contingent, which we didn't say, upon us being able to get that budget in the administrative funding. And just another clarification around their funding is allocated for service and administration. We get a separate pot for administration, so there's never any utilizing service dollars to cover the admin costs. Right now, preliminary projections are that we can build in the 2%. We're only currently utilizing around 83% of estimated dollars.
And, it gets complicated quickly, and of course, we'd be happy to, talk people through, how our budget works and the capitation and the split between the admin and the service dollars. Is it always completely predictable? No, it isn't. But that's just the nature of our business and kind of the dynamic aspects of it. We're, not having the benefit of working with us, we're very conservative on these things. So,
Knowing the work my care coordinator does for Jerry, he deserves that 2% raise, and I don't have a problem with it. I know the work he does, and I can give it more if I can give it to him.
we can't, and the other thing is, this is kind of a year-to-year thing. We can't, it's not as if we do this every year. And it doesn't sound very scientific when I say this, but we do it when we're able to do it. So, this is a year when we are confident in being able to do it, so.
Any other questions, comments?
My question was just more the same as Dr. Heck's. Are we voting on the COLA outside the budget, or we're voting to say we support it being a part of the budget that will come to us?
I think it's the latter.
It's the latter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because if other items come up in the next couple of weeks that we need in, I'm sure probably one of the first places we will go is to the COLA.
Any other comment? Okay, hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item is the Quality Improvement Committee. I believe it's the direct, for anyone here from the Quality Improvement tonight.
I don't, Carl, of course, is our chairman of that, and couldn't make it today, but I know there was a meeting, and I don't know how you worked out, maybe trying to offer some kind of report, Dr. Heck or anyone else.
Well, I can only offer a very short summary because I didn't have a chance to scrutinize the data, but I would say that the overall quality of the data seems excellent. It's a large amount of information. I think the quality committee has the job of trying to reduce the volume of that to a scope where we can really fully comprehend it and I think be helpful. However, the quality is actually excellent. It's just a lot. We did have some discussion, and I don't think there was any opposition to this idea. Pat was at that meeting, but the idea that moving forward, the quality committee ought to be pushing the board towards more outcome measures. So the kind of outcome measures that we're looking for in health and physical health, the same should be true in mental health. And an example is there's an article in JAMA recently which looked at a third of the, or a quarter of the suicides that occur in the United States actually occur in the first 28 days after a hospital admission for a mental health issue. And that number is reduced significantly if there is an appointment made within 7 to 10 days of the visit. So that's a number we ought to be tracking. That would be a direct proxy for outcomes. Is can we begin to track just even the claims data, what actually happens, how quickly do people get an appointment with a trained health professional after an ED or a hospital visit for a mental health crisis. So I think that's something that the board ought to be pushing towards, and I think the quality committee is committed to at least finding a few outcome measures that we can start to look at.
Do you have software that can handle those kind of?
Yeah, the data's already there. It's claims data, so you can that could be looked at. It can be looked at for those without health insurance. So for Medicaid claims data.
Actually, one of our performance standards, you're absolutely right, and that's why it is a performance standard for us in terms of a requirement of follow-up, essentially an outpatient treatment visit within how many days after discharge?
Well, we actually try to do it within 7 days. Well, we're supposed to have one within 5 days, but all appointments we try to schedule within 7 days because the state requirement is 14. So that way, if they miss that within 7 days, we have a chance to reschedule it and still meet the 14 days.
Right. And those are that's kind of data. And also there's the readmission rates, which would be really helpful for us to be looking at, because if we were doing a good job in terms of identifying people early with mental health problems, treating them in the right setting, that actually the readmissions rates would also, the admission and the readmission rates would go down.
And that's another one that we can measure down.
Yeah, we looked at it and we discussed it.
We are so lucky that we're gonna have Dr. Heck on this committee.
Yeah.
This is a learning process for me, but I mean, you know, it was just, he could just look at it and he could just ask the right questions, and I don't have to look at it like this. I need to look at, we need this, and this. And I feel privileged not to be on the committee with him.
Well, I'm
We
glad
all want to be helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad that we, have created this committee. It's been something I think we needed to do, and it's just a matter of organizing the resources to do it. And this was the first meeting, so the idea was to kind of put it all out there and get a scope that's workable, and have at it. So that's good.
Anything else? I will move on to the report of the chair of the board of directors. The executive committee met this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Some items that we talked about will also be expanded on a little bit further in Brian's time that he has up. Some things we discussed today was the Western Regional Partnership letter of intent, which I think Brian will be discussing a little bit later. The Medicaid reform plan response is another item that we discussed and talked about, and the county commissioner advisory board. And Shelby, You got something to pass out?
I do, I think, Jill mentioned she had, left, the handouts at the front desk. Did anyone not get it? It's titled Grafton County Commissioner Advisory Council Structure.
This is a draft copy of a plan for the advisory board, which will go to each one of our county commissioners, to the board, to validate what we have here. This is something that was prepared by Kelly and Michael Lavender. Worked a good while on this to be able to put together the thoughts that are in this thing. And during our meeting today, we had some changes and recommendations that we had. Once everybody gets a copy in hand, Kelly's going to let her go over the changes that we had asked for, or the inclusion that we asked for into this draft that's going to go out to our county commissioner board.
I just wanted to thank Tommy. We were trying to make the changes in real time, but unfortunately, I couldn't get connected here and didn't get to, so I will finish this and we'll get it out. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead and start with what you have there, and then the recommended changes from the.
Okay, I have this right here. Just as a highlight, and Tracy, if we need to have the specific law, I know you can address that. But as you know, with the general statute that changed the structure of the LME NCO boards, and changed the formation of the boards, the membership of the boards, there was also a recognition, I think, by the General Assembly that was a significant change for counties who had typically in the past had county commissioner or county manager representation to represent the views of the local counties that are served by the LME MCO. So as part of that legislation, which is, it has some information, it's not overly specific, so I think it gives us an opportunity to evolve and use this structure for the advisory council to meet the needs of our organization as well as meet the needs of our community. But this structure is based on that. One of the things I have been doing is getting out in the counties and meeting with either county managers and some of the county commissioners that are on the county board, or making official presentations to boards and commissions where we talk about the county advisory council. The one thing I haven't been able to do is get out to all country counties yet. We're still making the round, so I'm working on that. I met with Michael Lavender, who, as you know, is our county commissioner designated board member for the new board, and worked with him on the structure. The structure is based on a lot of the feedback we got from some of the commissioners and the county managers as I've been out meeting. And one of the main recommendations is that instead of having one large advisory council that travels across the 23 counties to come to meetings, is that we break that up into regions, 3 or 4 regions, which would follow the natural traffic patterns or provider network affiliations that would be appropriate. One of the ideas that came up today that we may pursue is trying to coordinate with the local council of government offices to sort of piggyback on their meetings, because we would have those same people as a part of that. So we would be identifying 3 to 4 regional groupings, and each of those regions would have a designated point person. Michael will be the overall point person, but we would be asking a person either on our board or who had previously been on our board, we would hope to begin with, to sort of help coordinate the activities in that region and try to get the regional group started. As we do that, we would meet quarterly in each of the regions, either the first or second months of the quarter, and then Michael would be meeting with point people from each of the regional groups on the third month of the quarter. We would have it as a standing agenda item here on the board of directors agenda items, and he would make reports if there was a specific issue. Other commissioners could be invited if there was a particular issue they want to speak to. One of the things we talked about doing was to minimize the travel and try to be as fair in travel as possible, is in each region that people would, each meeting would be held at a different location, so it would sort of move through the counties in that region. so that at some point in time, someone gets to stay in their home county for a meeting versus having to travel. We, of course, would be looking at this as an extension of our requirements around public meetings laws, and we would post notices of the meetings. We would have someone there who would take minutes, would document, and have all that information so that it's very organized in that manner. Let's see. We talked a little bit about that at each meeting, so that of course the board of directors would be invited to attend if they so chose to attend. The other thing we would do is we would, depending on the agenda, would have other participants, whether it's a Christina, a Sean, network providers that have a particular issue that needs to be addressed. So we would try to be responsive in developing agendas to meet the needs of the community, to help them get the information they need, so that we're not, as Brian said, playing middleman all the time, but we really are trying to get a dialogue going, especially between providers and the local governments. So I think, let's see, we developed sort of a proposed agenda, whereas, again, based on sort of what we would like them to know about Smoky, and that would be sort of an update on activities and things that we're doing at the particular time that they need, state initiatives. The main focus would be discussing access to care, service issues, concerns that they're hearing about in their county, because we all know that county commissioners are getting calls or stopped in the Walmart or the grocery store every day to hear about the concerns. So it would give us an opportunity to continue to hear at that ground level what is being discussed. And then the other thing we would continue to do is to help them understand our budgeting, both our Medicaid budget, our state budget, our local budget, and how those funds are being used to meet needs in the community. So those are just some of the areas that we talked about as far as the structure of the group. I'm going to stop there, Brian. What did I miss from today?
One other thing we were going to include in there too is making sure that each one of the board of directors here will have an opportunity to go to any of those regional meetings or any of those meetings that they want to.
Right.
So we're going to build that in there to just to remind you that y'all are welcome to go to those meetings when they happen.
I just wanted to say, Shelley, I know, you're working with Michael, and he's fabulous, and I just want to say for anybody that don't know, Michael is running for state senate, and it would be wonderful, as far as I'm concerned, if he makes it, because he's been so involved, not only with Smoky and before Smoky Foothills, but the Department of Social Services and stuff. So if anybody would know what the population that Smoky serves needs in Raleigh, it would probably be Michael. So I just want to tell y'all, I'm kind of proud that he's running for state senate and he's from the county I live in. So,
I'd vote for him if I could.
Yeah, right.
Once Shelley gets this document updated, she will send it out to you and poll the members of the board so we can go ahead and try to get this out to the county board of commissioners.
Right. The one last thing I just wanted to say, we actually reviewed this in executive committee to make sure we were correct. The County Commissioner Advisory Council is made up of county commissioners in the sense that each board of county commissioners appoints a commissioner. They don't have proxy members or members other than themselves that they appoint. What we discussed is that there would be an opportunity if a county commissioner felt that they needed to bring a county manager or someone with them for a particular discussion or a topic, that would be a possibility, but this really is made up of county commissioners. So again, we'll be cleaning this up, we'll be communicating this to county managers, letting them know we're going to be asking them to present it to their board for selection of a person. And then Michael and I will be working to help try to figure out the regions and bring back a proposal on that, as well as sort of next steps in going forward, hoping to begin in July.
Any questions for Shelley? Next item we discussed this morning or this afternoon was the vacant board seat that we have. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I think that maybe Ms. Carolyn Powers may have some recommendations for certain comments to make on that.
Okay, I think for the position that has to do with insurance, I would like to recommend Myrna Harris. She is the CEO of Crescent, a group here that provides a physician network for self-funded employers. It also has TPA services and case management services. So I do not know if she will accept this position, but she would bring a lot of valuable knowledge to the table if she would.
Let me just say that I have, as someone who is allegedly involved with the nominating committee, I have been provided with the name of someone who resides in Charlotte, who has managed insurance care experience, and his resume indicated that he was still in Charlotte, so I asked the question, has he moved to Asheville? Well, no, but he understands that it would have to come to Asheville once a month. And then I got an email later, it just occurred to me that might be problematic. And I said, well, it's problematic for me. Surely to goodness, there is someone in this 23 county area who has the kind of experience that we are looking for, and it sounds like Carolyn found her. If she would accept it.
The statute does require that all of our board members reside within our.
Well, all right. Good, I knew I had a reason without knowing the reason.
You're right. I don't think we knew that initially. The challenge here, and we're kind of in a little, maybe a little gray, is a contractor.
Not at ours, we talked about this, right?
I don't think it'll come back to hours, I think we need to double check this.
Yeah, but I mean,
I mean,
Trustee Kell,
And I don't know how they could do.
okay.
Smokey used to be in their network, and Smokey was a provider, but that would not.
We might help with that. Well, we can, of course, we go check on that, but appreciate that.
Any comments on the recommendations? Once they're able to validate the presence there and then if everything is good there, and she agrees with her, then we'll bring it back to the board at our next meeting for approval. Okay, moving on down to M, report of the chief executive officer.
Western Regional Partnership Letter of Intent. This is, been on our agenda more than once, and it's been several weeks, if not months, since we probably put this together. In fact, we had to actually update the letter to reflect some of the changes just in terms of the preparation of the Medicaid reform plan. On the agenda again, and we spoke about this a little bit at length in executive committee, and actually in a closed session would be some related information for that. A letter of intent is just that. It's a letter of intent. It does not bind anyone to anything. It's intended to commit interest and effort. I think rather than request a resolution of approving the letter per se, from speaking with the individuals who are the representatives from the, I guess that's right, Western Regional Partnership Board Steering Committee. It would be Ronnie, Mandy, and Rick. The idea is that they would have your support in going forward with this. And of course, be receiving any kind of feedback that anyone would have. It went through a lot to get it to this point, not that it can't be changed, but rather than approving it per se, I think you want to support the efforts of that group. Does that sound about right, Andy? Okay. So, we do happen to have a motion here. But before we do that, we certainly let people, look at that. And again, this is an updated version from one that you probably even saw back when we had the retreat. Back when we had this. Tries to cover the bases. And of course, one of the, just to kind of frame all of this, we continue to do all the same things that we have been doing as part of this effort, which largely have to do with looking at business processes that each of us have developed, and to try as much as possible to standardize those. Now, there are good reasons why some things are not the same, and we would not want them to be the same. But in areas where we can make things standard or consistent, it's been a big effort to do that. We do share the same IT vendor. So in terms of the negotiation with that vendor, for example, collaboration around enhancements, we can do that jointly instead of independently. Probably the example we always like to point to is sort of the process of looking through, and again we've been through how there are different cross-functional teams or work groups that look at various business operations, kind of the discovery process, looking at optimizing those processes, standardizing them, and in some cases asking the question, do all three of us need to be doing this? And in some cases the answer is no. Credentialing is a good example of that. There's nothing special or local, warm and fuzzy about credentialing. It's just an activity that has to be done as part of our network and contracting process with licensed professionals. So, we've kind of been chosen to be the organization to, go forward and develop a process with that that's scalable, and the others can contract with us. As far as that goes, there'd be no reason why another MCO across the state couldn't also contract with us. So that's kind of an easy one that you look at and say, well, yeah, that makes sense to not have redundancy in terms of administration. Of course, the fantasy is that everything's going to just be way cheaper by doing all of that. Trust me, it's not. It takes a while to get there. It's a lot of upfront costs, but of course, over time, that would be one of the things that we look at. So, anyway, any questions on the letter per se?
After getting all the info from the state and from the sun, you're not getting that risk. Now, with the letter of intent, do you as CEO feels that this is actually the best enforcement to follow through and to follow?
What a great question. I think what we're all doing, it's the same for me as it is for my colleagues, whether it be at Centerpoint or Partners or any other MCO in the state. People are waiting to see what the reaction of the General Assembly is going to be to the Medicaid reform plan. And let me just kind of re-summarize. We've always talked about the different stages that all of this would go through, and certainly a major milestone was the Secretary's report to the General Assembly, that is that Medicaid reform plan. And if you watch the news or read the papers, you see the various reactions that there have been to that. The state, the governor, and the secretary can't do anything until legislation enables activity. So there is a plan. Will there be legislation? Will there be changes? Will there be other ideas about our piece of that has to do with regionalization? I don't know. But what I can tell you is it makes sense for us to continue doing the things we're doing. And that's the beauty of this. No matter what happens, it's better for us as an organization, better for providers, it's better for consumers. The more we can get better at what we do and have that be as perfected and standardized as possible, the better all of this is. So, we're going to keep going down that path. When we know something different, if we do ever know something different, then we'll talk about it. How's that?
If that within your work feels like that's the best place we need to be going,
really, I think and again, it's just that the committee can kind of go forward and receive any of your feedback on the letter. And again, the letter doesn't commit us to anything. It's a nice letter. You know, it's even better than a nice letter. It's you know, suggests different things.
So you're not asking us to approve this letter of intent or as a board or are
Let me take a crack at a motion, just so we be prepared for this. Here's what we put together. Make a motion to authorize the Western Regional Partnership Board of Directors Steering Committee. Okay, now our members are Mandy, Ryan Deal, and Rick French, to proceed with negotiating and or finalizing the letter of intent between CenterPoint Partners and Smoky on behalf of Smoky. So you'd be giving them the authority to finalize this. We're not voting on signing it tonight, for example. That seemed to be the most reasonable way. I mean, we can,
the part I'm just trying to grapple with is, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think merging into 4 LMEs in the best interest of the state or with people in Western North Carolina. So, but I do think it makes sense to have a discussion because it's something that you've been really asked by the secretary to do. So I personally wouldn't want to, as a board member, to say that I would support, if this letter can be construed as supporting the formation of a merged LME. I wouldn't want, I don't think we're at that point where that is in the best interest of the region.
well, I can tell you, and I guess I would say that we would be more able to have additional discussion during the closed session part of the meeting. But for example, the board steering committee meeting that was scheduled has been, well, canceled or postponed. So is there a huge effort to push forward with this letter and other activities? I would say no, the pace has changed.
Mandy, can we hear from you? You're on this committee, and I feel like
I think that, to me, the letter of intent says that that is the model that's been put forth by the HHS. And that the plan clearly says that the secretary's plan is to move from 10 to 4. And that all this letter says is these 3 LMEs agree to continue to meet and have conversation. For me individually, I'd be in the same place as you, not being ready to support anything that says we support that model. It says we'll continue to meet, have conversation, look at methods of operation. Is there opportunity for efficiencies or shared resources? Moving forward for joint planning and process elements. But it also clearly says where each participant is equal partners. And that's all it says to me. That'd be about all I'd be.
Yeah, that's
I'd
something
be right there with you.
There's nothing not to support about having a conversation.
But I think Brian makes a good point. We're not even saying endorse the letter. We're saying endorse those 3 people continuing to represent us in the conversations.
And given the sentiment, I would guess, and again, I'm careful and not speak for board members, but you would probably not be in a position to go and sign any letters until you came back and talked to the board. Would that be fair to say,
That would be
maybe?
very true.
So there you go.
And intention.
That's good conversation.
Any other comments, concerns from anyone? From a consensus standpoint, do we give the 3 members of the steering committee our support?
Yeah, and it's not even really clear, we're a new board, we're getting used to working with one another. If this is something, that people are going to have a motion about, you feel comfortable with discussion, so, we're just figuring it out. Right.
Good. Okay. And again, we'll have a chance to speak one more. Boy, the local business plan, holy cow. This has been something in the general statute for a long time. Since mental health reform, thank you. And then we took a hiatus for several years because, let's see, I'll try to finish the sentence. The pace of change and the velocity and the pace of change was just so tremendous that it made it very difficult to plan, to be honest with you. For those of you that have been part of this for some years, of course, the major planning we did was to prepare ourselves to become a public at-risk managed care organization, running a prepaid inpatient health plan. So our local business plan was all about that. It didn't make sense to have a business plan like this when that's what we were doing. And of course, our efforts for the last year and now coming up on 2 years have been around perfecting all of that, engaging with the community around all the changes that are part of that. And I guess somebody had the idea that it would be wise to bring back the requirement for the LME MCOs to again complete a local business plan. So that was announced last spring. The format of it is different. The statewide initiatives are all prescribed. So in a way, I guess it's the state's ability to give you a certain assignment to talk about how you're going to be addressing all of these issues that you see on the front page here. Excuse me, over on the left, statewide initiatives, transition to community living, and that's the DOJ settlement, that's the new language for that. CAC-supported employment, crisis service enhancement, again, I think Ronnie and Jenny are both part of that statewide committee that's looking at crisis services closer to home. And over time, we've had a lot of different conversations about our very early experiences as a managed care organization dealing with the overutilization of residential, very high-level residential treatment for children in the state and in our catchment area, and how we had to deal with that, both clinically and financially. And then the IDD wait list, that, of course, is always been a major issue. The local initiatives were ones that we developed ourselves because they made sense for us to talk about. There is, and I'll pass the ball to Christina here in a minute, get something right. There is a requirement of CFAP review, of course, and then also there is a requirement, it's a little bit of an anachronism in the general statute. Actually, each county has to make some, I guess, approval of the local business plan. So Shelley, I guess you'll be busy getting those approvals of our local business plan. There's an attestation in the back let's see, I hereby attest that this document in its entirety has been reviewed by CFAC, approved by each county commissioner board representing this LME MCO, and approved by the LME MCO board. So to me, that means each of the board of county commissioners would need to approve this. So that's Title 23.
Yeah.
Most of the law, and again, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, most of the law has changed around that. That the board is recognized as more representing the counties in that regard. There were a whole bunch of things. In the past, we couldn't buy property without approval from each individual county. This is just, I think, maybe one last piece, maybe somebody forgot to change, I'm not sure. Certainly, we don't mind doing that, but it's together.
So, Christina, or anyone, I'm not sure, what level of detail, anyone would want to go through this, or questions you might have. I'll just leave that up to anyone to have any questions, or Christina, any comments you'd like to make.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a couple of things. The tip was given to us, Brian, through the initiatives. Of course, this is a big piece of our day-to-day work, what the state requires us to talk about. One of the things that I'm sensitive about as we've been dealing with the plan and creating it internally across the departments is that this barely touches the amount of work that each one of the initiatives requires us to do. We could be writing pages about each and every one of these. So I think what we would like to do in the future as we move forward, when we get to our vantage point in a few minutes, and Jenny walks through her department, and next month it'll be care coordination and different things, that you'll hear more about the individual initiatives. I think that, to be honest, I think we as a system, we need a strategic plan. We need a very clear vision. This is not going to fulfill that requirement by any means for us, with you as a board and for us as our staff and the leadership and what we would like to do. But as Brian said, we try to respect the requirement. I hate to say we just filled out a form, but we did, the leadership, the senior directors and people here across the system who are here tonight contributed to this. There were links if you have any interest to go on our web and read more about it. But I think that we need to do a better job and do it more justice over time as we meet each month and really give you the knowledge and the information that we think would be most important. This is very valuable work, these initiatives. This is a crux of what we do most days. But I think that, again, I think answering the questions, I'm not sure there's any reason to go with it. When I look back at the goals, even though we tweaked it again, when Jill sent it out on Friday, some of these goals we've met, they've changed. I mean, the system is so evolving at this point in time that it's very hard to say, here's the goals we're going to work on in the next 6 months, because we just add to them every day. So I would just stop there. But we're more than glad to talk to you about any of the initiatives or what we said today in the document. And we'll bring the seat back for sure. We're going to do something at our staff meeting to just make sure everybody has seen it and highlight some things.
Feedback, look at this, get back. Our feedback, our substance feedback, we're continuing to think we're on every month. We're working through the same, what we need to do, but as far as having, something for a while, I can certainly get mine in very quickly. I'll be able to work through next month, and they'll all be there. So how soon do you need this happen?
I don't know if there's a specific date here. I'm looking to see about the feedback and having the signature, even though I think that out of respect we would always get this. So I think we can work with you on a schedule. It's on a specific time frame. I think it's going to take Shelley a while to get through all the counties on her tour of duty.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I just got through half of it.
So I think we're okay, but I really appreciate that. We'll work with Brian for all the regions to set that up.
Now, Chuck has asked me a good question, so what do we do here at the board? And what year are we gonna get all the things signed off on? Julie, just putting on the spot here, I don't know, is there a way that we submit this and just say we're working on all the rest of it, or Tracy?
This in my view is step one. The board approves it first, and then from there, it is disseminated to the counties, the counties will approve it, and see back. But our commitment to DHHS is that we would get more approval at that point, and then move forward to get our counties. I think DHHS recognizes that with our large catchment areas, it's not going to be a simple matter to just get every county signed up and like it.
A lot can change before we get around to it.
And if our feedback, when something added, or not having to do that to us.
We talk about that, and change it, I mean, it's, yeah.
I am unhappy with this because the only place substance abuse services are they're tucked in a little bit with ACT, a little bit with other populations, but no specific substance abuse in any of these initiatives. Right here. And
Well taken.
again, and again, and again. So I don't like it. And I don't, and Brian says, well, it's, the state is setting it down, so, part of the reason why I'm here is what can I do to get this population?
You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Nobody, has any bad feelings about your comment at all. I mean, I could go on and on about that. People tolerate it, so, I mean, we're more than happy to, as Christina said, there's, we can put as much into this as we choose to. And certainly that's a very valuable
I know last year, Christina, there were some grants before the budget happened for some additional services. In particular, for the western part of the state, I know there's just nothing, you have to come over here. So I was hoping with the combination, combining Western Highlands, that would, bump it up.
Well, one of the things, and not to change the subject, Johnny, but you're going to be, very engaged when we complete our network analysis and gap analysis, because it goes to exactly, what you're talking about. And there'll be a lot of opportunity for discussion around all of that. And you know what? That's going to be another thing like this where, it's never going to be done. We're just going to stop at some point and sign it and keep, on with what we're doing. But, we're open to whatever you would like with this.
Is this just a model that you all are going to attempt to follow, and in the end, if you do some, you got this is there any implication or?
Here's how I would put it. This is just something that the state expects to be done. Okay? What we can, how much effort we put into it and how much is helpful in ways that we care about, to some degree is up to us. Now, I would tell you, and again, now when we've had the same conversation with that network analysis, we finally, we have worked and worked and worked, and we finally just had to say, we got to stop and just say it's done. Well, it's not done. Just like this is not done, it's just the point you're going to stop. And the irony of this is we love doing this stuff. Planning, looking at data, understanding things, being very strategic about our actions. I would tell you that our success is as much about that as anything. We're very good at doing those kinds of things. So, how good do you want to make it is a really, there's a lot of tyranny in that decision for us. So, you hate to do something, it's got to be done. But, our philosophy is always, do it, get it done, but it's got to have some value to it if you're going to do the work. But how much, is always a question. So, back to your comment, I think, whether we do that through the CFAC or however we do that, that's a very good discussion to have. And to tell you the truth, I care more about that kind of discussion and doing that. That's where we really get benefit. Because we can go on and on all day about this stuff. It's just what we do every day. But that is a valuable piece of business that we should be doing.
Well, I feel like, and she's talking about, she's from a different region than I'm from. And I'm sure it's important in this region too. But I feel like it will be an issue that will be observed in our region as well. And that there'll be some comments.
Good. So, where does that get us to?
We still need to ask for approval. Is that correct?
Well, except that we're not, we're getting comments that there's not complete satisfaction with it. So I think what we need to do is to go back and work with the CFAC would be the venue, to to work with that? Does that seem appropriate? And I guess that's a question for the board.
Well, that feels more comfortable to me. I struggle to say CFAC can implement it if we approve it. And then they would.
Yeah, we agree.
So the way you worded it was more comfortable. Unless it's something that absolutely has to go.
So let me just, as we're always honest and transparent, this report was due April 1st. We have informed the state, we've just been in transition, been quite busy. So we asked for it to be April 30th. We probably should, and as we have been working on this, maybe be more mindful with the CFACs. So I think this is a very appropriate conversation. I want to be very respectful to CFAC, and I think that I would look, of course, Brian, and we all have very good relationships, we believe, with both of the state. Right now, they're expecting this back on April 30th. We can absolutely have a conversation, make a phone call, and give them a new day, because based on this conversation tonight, we would really like to process this back with our CFACs and ask for another 30 days or something. If we could do that, I just think you just need to know that. And, we don't think anybody's going to come out here and slap our hand or give us a penalty or punish us. But I just think you just need to know all the facts. So I don't want to be disrespectful to it being a working document. So,
I'll take the heat.
yeah.
And maybe you could tell them if this came from them, that's not Smoky CFAC's not happy with. CFAC's not happy with them if they're not including subsistence.
We understand. Absolutely. So, I think we're fine. I just wanted to just share the whole story.
I feel if we're going to submit a document to the state, we should have it clean, clear what it is, and make sure that we've answered all the questions that every board member may have, or every organization that has to just take a look at it. Ryan, can I request an extension to sometime maybe
Maybe the next year.
We'll move on then to Vantage Point, Jenny Pugh.
Good evening, everybody. I am Jenny Pugh, and I am the Senior Director for Community Collaboration, and I was the fortunate one to get the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm going to try to speak loudly enough, and I'm going to try to lean forward so I can see all of you. I will tell you this won't take very long. Now, I can say 3 reasons that this won't take very long. One is it's the last thing on the agenda and you're looking a little tired. Secondly, Dr. Martin did this presentation last month and did such a great job, I'm a little intimidated. But the third thing and the most important thing is so much of what I was going to share with you tonight has already been discussed by many of you, which is really gratifying to me. Comments that Nancy made are very much on target with what we're doing. Certainly Dr. Peck's comments, I hope you will see reflected in some of what we're going to share briefly here tonight. The folks who did public comment, certainly we'll see some things in here that I think resonate with them. And I have to say before the meeting started, Jerry Rice and I were having our usual conversation, much of which related to this document. So I'm going to talk to you about this department called Community Collaboration, and we are a young department. This department was formed when Smoky went live with the waiver and became, frankly, quite a bit larger, and we really had to restructure how we did a lot of work. And then on the heels of that, as we well know, we went from 15 counties to 23 counties, which is really enormous. So some of the work that we're going to show you tonight and talk to you about tonight was formerly all encapsulated in care coordination and in our public affairs and communications department, and it was really handleable at that time in that way. Now we're much bigger and we have to be a little more specific in the way we work, and we have to be a little more on the ground. So what I would say to you is to think about this is a large department comprised of 7 teams. The department size is actually about the size that the entire Smoky organization was before going live with the waiver. So that kind of gives you a little perspective about how big a group this is that it takes to cover 23 counties. It is comprised of 7 teams, and I'll try to touch on each of those teams. You've got in front of you a handout that gives you just a little snapshot of what each of the teams do. And behind that little 2-page, we thought we would get this on 1 page and it just wouldn't fit. So we have a 2-page flyer about our department. And for each team, there's another 1-page flyer that we can make available to you that gives you a little more information about the work of the team. I'll go back though and say that when Brian talks about community collaboration, and when he talks about our counterpart, which we'll hear about next month, which is care coordination, he talks about these 2 groups as being boots on the ground. And in a very real way, we are. We are positioned in all of your counties, and we're responsive to each community and each culture, each county. So the work we do, I can describe in general terms, but I would want you to know that it becomes very specific when it's in Yancey County, or Alexander County, or Allegheny County. It looks a little different, and in most of those counties, as you'll hear from Rhonda, many of the people who are working live and grew up, many of them, in those counties. So it is very much a local boots on the ground effort. Now, when you hear about care coordination, you're going to hear very much about consumer-specific activities. When you hear about our teams, you hear a lot about systems activities. And there are some consumer-focused, some individual activities, but globally, we are really working on systems issues. And if we have to describe what we do in just a phrase or two, we are all about building community capacity in each of these counties. We are about helping each local community understand how to grow healthier children, healthier adults, healthier families. It is really, truly this conversation about integrated care. Our role is to get that behavioral health piece into that conversation. It is heavily, heavily weighted on really reducing stigma of behavioral health issues, increasing the public's knowledge so that we can identify early concerns, early identification. Really before that, prevention. Then early intervention and treating people early in the process so that we avoid people ever having to experience big behavioral health crises if that's possible. So that's a lot of what we do. So the teams are community outreach, consumer relations, crisis management, the geriatric and adult mental health specialty team, which we call GERO, hospital liaison team, housing and employment, and transition to community living. You've already heard about most of these teams tonight. You just may not realize that, so I'll try to help you connect those dots. And I won't go through a long description of each team. I'll just give you a little snippet of something so you can understand what that team does. So for the community outreach team, the jobs are kind of 50-50. 50% is really helping build local community coalitions and being strong members of those coalitions. Really building that capacity in the community. So what do the coalitions look like? They can be child mental health coalitions, adult mental health coalitions, substance abuse coalitions. They can be wellness coalitions. Last week I was in McDowell County with the wellness coalition there, and we are really influencing that coalition to look at total health, to look at behavioral health, not just to look at physical health, and really how we can integrate on the ground in that county. So that's an example of the 50% of meetings and coalitions and collaboration that we do. The other 50% of this team's job is real community education. And one of the things I would like to share with you tonight is that we've done this in a very planful and intentional way for almost 2 years, but this year we're getting more sophisticated. We decided that we thought we knew what our communities wanted, but thinking that we know is not enough. Finding out what our communities want is what we have to do. So we launched this campaign back in February to do a community education survey before we built the community education plan. What a novel concept. Now, what we did though is we said, who is it important to hear from? Because our mission is not to educate Dr. Heck or to educate licensed clinicians. Our mission is to educate community and to educate people who use our services. So our survey, we thought, let's be really gutsy. Let's try to get 300 responses, and let's try to get responses from all 23 counties, and let's make sure that at least half of them come from people who use the services or support people who use the services. So how did it work out? We got more than 650 responses, and more than half of them came from people who use the service, people that have skin in the game, or people who have friends or close family who are using the services. And what did they tell us? They told us what they wanted to learn about, how they wanted to learn about it, and where they wanted to learn about it, and what time of day, and what day of the week they wanted to learn about it. And you know, people are interested because Shelley is helping me have an opportunity to talk about this to folks in Alexander County, and I got a call saying, well, when you're going to come talk to us about it, don't bring us data about, you know, Jackson County. We don't really care about Jackson. Bring us data about Alexander County, which is easy when you use SurveyMonkey. So when I talk there, I'll be saying, this is exactly what Alexander County said they wanted, and this is how we're going to deliver it. So how do we deliver education? In many different ways. The one thing I want to talk about tonight is that we do use evidence-based programs. Right now we're using some 8 evidence-based programs.
One of the ones that I think is important for y'all to hear about tonight is youth mental health first aid. And we're not waiting for the full development of the plan. We got our people certified. We did some of the certification in partnership with NAHEC. I would want you to know that we've got about 6 classes already scheduled in the next 2 months. 2 of the classes in the next week are going to occur in Ashe County and Transylvania County. Why is that important for me to tell you? I will tell you it's important because very sadly, we lost children to suicide in those 2 counties in recent months. So how did we go there first? Why did we go there first? Because that's where the need is. We didn't need a survey to tell us that, but that's the way we're planning. So many other evidence-based programs, but those are just some idea of how we will push those trainings out and how we will work with our community. So, and know that when we go out to train, we're going out to train community members, moms, dads, Cub Scout leaders, basketball coaches, youth ministers, sometimes the principal of the school or the guidance counselor at the school, but we're going out to reach people in the community that have an interest because, again, we're building that capacity. What will happen if we do this well? We will raise healthier children. I won't be here 2 decades from now to see this, but I believe it will happen. I believe we'll have healthier children. And when we have healthier children, we already know from all the research we'll have healthier adults. We'll have fewer incidents of substance abuse problems, fewer incidents of crisis. We'll have fewer people in EDs, behavioral health crisis. So we are planting seeds now to grow big trees. That's what we're doing in community collaboration with community outreach. Consumer relations, and I'll just go ahead and tell you now, it's hard to talk about this department as just a department because we are so cross-functional at Smoky. We're doing all these projects with people from other departments, and our teams are very cross-functional. So the consumer relations team, important to note, supports the CFAC, supports the Human Rights Committee. Brian is the director for that team, leads great work with those groups. But also in that team, consumer relations, we are using peer and family support specialists. Who are these folks? These are folks with lived experience. So for the family partners, these could be moms or dads who have had the experience of raising a child with special needs, who can be with, in a very literal sense of the word, be with somebody who's now on the path and support them. The same thing for peer support specialists. People who have had some lived experience. I'll remind the board that about probably 3 months ago, you had probably one of the best speakers that ever came in this room, and you're probably still remembering that man who was a peer support specialist. He told you his life story. He told you how he became a peer support specialist and why, and boy, is he powerful. Here's the thing. That's just one peer support specialist. He's a great public speaker and a trainer. I'll tell you just a little snippet about another peer support specialist. She'll never come in this room and talk to all of you. That would be way too hard for her. She's a person who had a great job, I believe in the furniture industry in Caldwell County. She lost her job in an economic downturn. She had an accident. She experienced pain. She took prescription medications, and then things really started getting out of control. And it was a while before she could figure out how to connect with services, how to begin a life of recovery, which led her to being a peer support specialist, which has led her to be a RAP facilitator. And whereas the gentleman you met is this dynamic speaker who could be on national TV, this woman's gift is that she can sit with a person who's living through what she lived through, and she can offer that hope, she can offer that support, she can help them learn about personal responsibility, she can help them learn about a path to long-term recovery. And so this is what our peer support specialists do for us. And again, cross-functionally, we don't have them just on Brian's team, we have them on the transition to a community living team, and we have them in our access to care department. So they're kind of all across. We have some 20 people right now at Smoky who are peer support specialists or family partners. So again, these people are really engaged in that community education plan. I mentioned RAP, which is the Wellness Recovery Action Planning. We have, I think, 8 people who are certified, internationally certified, to do 2-day training workshops and help people build those RAP plans. So we're really excited about that. Crisis management, you've heard about from us for so long. And we have had this really strong team working at Smoky for almost 2 years. We are finally now beginning to see real outcomes, not outputs. We were able to get outputs right from the beginning, but outcomes where we are seeing in a community that our mobile crisis team is responding more in the community and lessen the ED, which is what we wanted to see. So we're able to start to see some of those really good outcomes now. Also building community capacity and training with that team, as well as we have a process map, a flow that shows how we at Smoky really kind of put our hands on somebody as soon as they're going into crisis. We work with our mobile crisis teams, we work coordinating services in emergency departments, and then we do follow through afterwards. That links me over to hospital liaisons, because a lot of people who go into EDs because they really do need a higher level of care. And rather than, often we can send somebody home with outpatient treatment and maybe with a peer bridger, a peer support person who will check on them, make sure they get to their first appointment, make sure they have a good outcome, staying engaged with service. But some people do need to go on to inpatient care. For those people, our crisis support coordinator will hand that person over to a hospital liaison. Dr. Heck, this is your part of the program. So we follow that person through inpatient care. We work very, very hard to ensure they have a really robust plan coming out of inpatient care. A RAP plan, maybe linked to a peer support specialist, a really robust crisis plan that we all know about and we can all help implement, and then engagement with service. And yes, we're watching the data to see if where we have engaged, can we prevent a person re-entering the ED or re-entering inpatient care? Can we keep them out, keep them supported, keep them successful? So that hospital liaison team right now is making between 300 to 400 contacts with individuals and hospitals per month to work on those plans. And as I tell Nancy every time I have a breath, we don't have enough staff. We have way too many people in hospitals. We need to be working harder to get them out with great plans. So who have I missed so far? I think I talked a little bit about the GERO teams. These are teams formed of clinicians, nurses, qualified professionals. They do a couple of things. They go out and do training in all kinds of settings that are serving older adults. They help people learn skills so that they can support people, again, living healthy lives, avoiding crisis, avoiding the emergency department, avoiding inpatient care. So they're doing more than 100 trainings a month across 28 counties, because we cross over into another LMD MCA with that program. So more than 100 trainings in all of these settings, and also about 25 to 30 individual consults with caregivers who are trying to maintain an older person in the home, but maybe having challenges with managing behavior related to dementia, or managing medications, managing just nutrition and hydration, which become real challenges in older adults. So that's our GERO team. They have a training library. They are right now going through their library and updating. They update everything almost every year to stay very current with very best practices. They've got about 80 training modules that they're reworking right now. So, housing and employment. Housing first. That's what we say when we talk. We just say housing first. We're talking about this ED problem. And if you send somebody who's in behavioral health crisis, take care of them, kind of put them all back together, and you send them out, but they don't have a roof over their head, they don't have a place to take a shower tonight, and they don't know where their next meal's coming from, do you really think they're going to make it to their follow-up appointment? So housing is a huge problem. Employment, we really want people who want to work and can work to be working again. So this group provides a lot of consultation and technical assistance to our providers who are providing housing support and supported employment. And they're also kind of the last resort option. If a provider is completely unable to help somebody find housing or find work, we provide that direct support to those folks. So, you know, we were talking about this today in our team meeting about, we try to share stories of what's working. And recently, a person who did get housing through Shelter Plus now has a job working 35 hours a week and has gone back to school. So, you know, there's something about having a place to go home to at night and a warm bed to climb into after having a nice meal that helps you be able to put your life back together. So those are the kind of differences we can make in people's lives with housing and employment. Last, I want to talk briefly about transition to community living. Christina mentioned this. This is a state mandate to us. This is coming out of a state and federal mandate that we are supposed to try to help people who are not living in community now live that dream of getting to community coming from some large congregate living setting. We can use the institution word, I think, in this room. You know, the thing is, it's a mandate. We are charged with helping people move on to community living. there's a couple ways Smokey could have responded to this, and this is one of the reasons, frankly, I love working at Smokey. We could have said, this is just going to be a hardship, a burden. People are imposing quotas on us. They're telling us what to do and how to do it, and there's no way we can do this. That has never been the Smokey response. The Smokey response, and this is not bragging, because I didn't start this program at Smokey, I inherited it. The Smokey response has been, oh my gosh, what an opportunity. What an opportunity. There's money that comes with this. We can go in reach to people, do options counseling, let them know they might have a choice, an option to move from this family care home where pretty much all your decisions are made for you. You eat what you're served, you take your meds when they're handed to you, you come inside and the door gets locked when you're told. You could have an option to have your own home, buy your own food, plan your own meals, have your own friends. It will take a lot of support for you to be successful at this. A lot of support, because many of these people for 20 years or more have lived under somebody else's roof with somebody else's rules and guidance. Independent living is not that easy for your 22-year-old son or your child graduating from college. But think about if your life had always been under somebody else's supervision and now this big opportunity occurs for you. And that's the opportunity we have to help guide people on that path. We take this opportunity incredibly seriously. We have to date the opportunity and the funding to house 60 people. We have today, the number is 40 that we have identified, made the offer, offered the support, planned the transition, and have them now out living in the community. Nancy told you the story that really is something that really warms my heart. And when we talked about this during the winter, in November and in December, a handful of people went shopping, went back to their homes, prepared holiday meals for family members and friends, and they had never, ever been in a place to do that before. Invited their family to come in for a turkey dinner for Thanksgiving. Wow, what a great thing. So this is a wonderful, wonderful program. Much more work to be done, many more people to be served. I'll tell you something though, Smokey doesn't just kind of do it up to the standards. We have to take it up a level. So our team thought, we have these prescribed documents from the state, these plans to do for people, and they can get to be 60 pages long. It's the biggest bureaucratic mess you ever saw. And this is the plan that Craig's supposed to use to move out. We said, we don't want to do this. We want to create a new life notebook that has a person-centered plan in it. And our team just went to work on that. They did great work, but here's what happened. We presented it to Christina Carter, who happens to be a person-centered planning expert, and she's very sweet, she was very kind. She said, this does look really nice, but it's not quite good enough. And so she consulted, and Greta Bird consulted. They helped us make it much, much better. It was presented in Raleigh last week to the people who oversee this settlement. We had the opportunity to say, we think this is the gold standard for a person-centered plan. They thought it was great. They loved it. Few tweaks here and there, but we'd like to see everybody in the state use this sort of plan. They said when they went out to try to get in the car to go home, several state officials followed them out and said, you know what, Smokey's our hope. Smokey's our hope. And I just thought we should say, Christina, good work. Thank you for pushing us. So I tried to do a really whirlwind tour of what this department is with its 7 teams and with our mission to build community capacity to help people live in wellness and live in recovery. I would be willing to answer questions or provide more information if that would be helpful at some point.
Jenny, as far as you mentioned the liaison, hospital liaison.
Yes.
Are those meetings, are they interdisciplinary?
Yes.
Or are they just psychiatric teams?
No, we want them to be interdisciplinary. We want them to become more of an integrated care model. And there's not just one kind of meeting. There's a treatment team meeting in the inpatient center that we go to, but we're also staffing these cases with CCNC. We would certainly want to bring any other partners to the table if DSS is involved with this person, if this person's minister is very involved. Who are this person's support back at home, and can we bring them to this planning table? So, it's open to anybody.
And I keep going back to the big picture of the reform plan, seeing terminology like, will embed, mental health workers in, hospitals or treating primarily medical issues. And I think there's already some major windows of opportunity that, are there.
that are already happening and people.
That's
And holistic.
When we talk about linking with people in communities, it never looks the same in any community. We go in and try to find what is there, and where can we fit in, and can we find a chair at the table? And if there isn't a table, can we build a table and bring the chairs? You know, it's just, we just meet people where they are. That's what we do.
I hope you will bring this notebook or slam that you created into CFAC.
I've already got it on the list. We want you to see it. We want you to tell us whether you think it's the gold standard.
I'm pleased. I've been on a lot of phone calls and sometimes with folks from Raleigh and everybody will be saying, we need to do this for the whole state, we need to do this. And I say, you know, you need to kind of leave Smokey alone, we're doing all right. You know, and they're like, yeah, we know.
So I'm real pleased. We would love to bring that. I actually was thinking today we need to, we've done several TCL updates for CFAC. It's probably time for us to come back and do another, and we could bring that with us when we come.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jay. Thank you. Next item, is there any other business tonight?
We want to make sure, let me just do this before I forget. So, thanks, Dave. On Friday, May 16th, it's our employee appreciation luncheon, and we always welcome board members that can come. It's going to be right here in the Asheville at the Crown Plaza. That's a little bit off the, by Westgate Plaza over in there. So great if you can join us. And then, according to my notes here, the deadline is today for the North Carolina Council Spring Policy Forum. And again, we always welcome, we encourage board members to attend that. And we have some signed up.
That's it.
That's good. It's one of two really big conferences each year. It's a great opportunity to hear and network and whatnot. So any last minute sign up, Jill will take care of it.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a closed session. The board is going to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, bracket 83, assault of attorney in order to further the attorney-client privilege concerning matters of litigation and to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1, or not considered a public record within the meaning of chapter